All right, well, let's move to our last speaker and then to the reception. We're very excited to have with us one of our other visiting professors this year, the Edwin O. Reischauer Visiting Professor of Japanese Studies, Christine Yano, who's also a professor of anthropology at the University of Hawaii. Christine's research or interests are Japan, Japanese Americans, and as a focus, and the processes by which nation cultures construct and sustain themselves, in particular in forms of popular culture, music, and other consumer goods, with an eye to their interactions with the larger frameworks of gender, class, nationalism, and globalism. Christine's most recent book is Pink Globalization, Hello Kitty, and its trek across the Pacific. We're very happy to have Christine on with us.
Thank you very much. I am so pleased to be here. I am just thrilled to be here at Harvard. It's, I thank Ted for leaving. That's all I can say. I wanted to speak on something related to the title, but with a slightly different refraction. It comes partly from my experiences as department chair at the University of Hawaii, which I was from 2011 to 2013. And at the beginning of that, I was sort of charged with creating a 5-year plan. In the way organizations like to do this, and you sort of come out with grand ideas or kind of a vision. And at that time, the vision that I chose and the way I chose to really emphasize the department would be through a Hawaiian idea, which is not unique to Hawaii, I'm sure, but it is called Kuleana, Kuleana. So sorry, no PowerPoint, but Kuleana, which means both responsibilities and rights. And let me just read what I posted therefore in the 5-year plan, as well as on the department website. It said, and this, of course, part of this is specific to the University of Hawaii, but maybe not so specific and exclusionary to that. So I wrote, as an original land-grant institution, the University of Hawaii shoulders particular responsibility to the community. We recognize the fragility of island ecosystems, including their cultural, intellectual, and natural resources. Thus, we place firm commitment in upholding responsibilities to those resources, exploring past conditions of settlement, challenging existing stereotypes of interaction, and developing means of leadership in ourselves and our students for the future. The broad-based knowledge upheld by anthropology provides us with the strength of our differences to embrace that stewardship. And this is how we conceptualize Kuleana, in other words, as stewardship. And we extend the concept of Kuleana to the land and people around us, to the work that we do as growing scholars, to the community that we build through our interactions, through the teaching and learning that are foundational to the department. So Kuleana defines the ethical basis upon which we establish who we are and what we do as anthropologists. If anthropology is the study of humankind in all its interactions, symbols, objects, emotions, meaning systems, and struggles through time, then Kuleana embeds itself as the highest principle of respect and obligation within that endeavor. And to reinforce what I was trying to state, the way in which I was trying to galvanize or to have the department focus on the notion of stewardship as part of our scholarship, I established an annual Kuleana Award. This is what administrators are supposed to do, right, to sort of promote certain kinds of values. And the Kuleana Award was based upon those principles which I just expressed. And everyone who was, in effect then, how was I going to choose? Everyone who was nominated received an award. But here's the thing, and I really felt strongly about this. I felt that the nomination process should be just as integral to the award as the awarding of it. So in other words, I had nominator and nominee come up to the podium to receive the award. In effect, it was a joint award, really a reflection of the community. And in the first year of the award, I was so gratified. There were 4 winners: an undergraduate, a graduate student, a faculty member, and staff. So what pleased me is that people perceived Kuleana extending throughout what I'll consider the department's ohana, or family. And since then, well, actually, maybe it preceded this, I've been engaged myself in certain kinds of what I'll say Kuleana-focused activities. One of them, which I consider kind of outreach activities. One of them was a radio show, and called Thinking Out Loud, Talking Issues, Taking Action. And it was community-based. It was also interview-based, so it wasn't about me. It was theoretically a call-in, although not that many people called in. In Hawaii, people are kind of shy to publicly speak in that sense. It was an hour-long show, but here was the point, that the last 20 minutes, if you think of my title, Thinking Out Loud, Talking Issues, Taking Action, that the last 20 minutes would be more than a gripe session, and a session, the last 20 minutes, I wanted to be about how do we create solutions. So it explored these kinds of issues, and here's some of the kinds of things that we did. Oh, the other thing is I chose guests with a focus on, quote, regular people. I didn't want politicians. I didn't even want university professors or other so-called experts. What I wanted it to be a people's forum. So here were some of the topics. And in my choice of guests and possibly the topics, I hope you can see the anthropology in it. I hope you can see the kind of Kuleana-infused, stewardship-infused anthropology, or applied anthropology, some people might call it. So we talked about community memory and history with a focus on World War II internment. We talked about sustainability in tough times, from local agriculture to home gardens, and I interviewed a local farmer. We talked about keeping family businesses alive in today's economic climate, and I interviewed an owner of a small family business. We talked about a Japanese folk dance practice called bon dance and its longevity and changing practices in multicultural Hawaii, and for that I interviewed a bon dance drummer. We talked about the power of forgiveness with comparative looks at cultural concepts of peace. For that I interviewed a Hawaiian and a Japanese, a Hawaiian minister and a Japanese Buddhist priest. We talked about performing arts as transmission of culture from one generation to the next, and for that I interviewed a taiko artist and his students. We talked about the pursuit of happiness and cultural notions of well-being, how to get there. For that, I interviewed what I considered a very well-adjusted older woman and tried to get her wisdom from her. We talked about ethnic humor, who has the right to be funny, and how, and at whose expense. Should there be limits to ethnic humor? And for that, I interviewed a local comedian. We talked about the brain drain in Hawaii, how to draw Hawaii's talent home and keep them there. And for that, I interviewed a recent graduate of Columbia University who decided to turn down jobs in New York City and return to Hawaii to try to make a difference there. She eventually ran for political office. She didn't win, but she got a surprising number of votes. We talked about racism in Hawaii, hidden and not so hidden ugliness, and for that, I interviewed a prominent Hawaiian artist. We also talked about what's in Hawaii and on the West Coast called hapa, what it means to be mixed race, past and present. And I interviewed two mixed race brothers, one who are Hawaiian Okinawan, of Hawaiian Okinawan ancestry, and one brother, and each of the brothers have decided to go separate ways in terms of their activism, and their separate ways link up with, oddly enough, with their phenotype. So the Hawaiian-looking brother is active in the Hawaiian community, and the Okinawan-looking brother has gone to Okinawa to find his roots, et cetera, et cetera. So in my mind, doing the radio show, and the radio show went on for about 2.5 years. After a while, being department chair and doing the radio show was just getting to be too much. So doing the radio show was really making public, I feel, what we do as social or sociocultural anthropologists. That is, talk to people and find out what makes sense to them. But here, as in applied anthropology, make the talk issues focused and even work, perhaps, towards some kind of action. I've also done some museum work. The first exhibition that I did was in 2006 about my work in the local community with the resulting book called Airborne Dreams, Nisei Stewardesses and Pan American World Airways. So the exhibit was of the experiences of those Japanese American stewardesses. We had fun designing that. We had a mountain of Pan Am bags, and I'm sure maybe some here in this audience might have a stash of Pan Am bags in your closet. So that exhibit was held at the Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii, and a portion of it traveled to the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. And I'll just say that the stewardesses, which is what they like to be called, were thrilled. We're just thrilled that they would find a place at the Smithsonian, in that one case of the exhibit. And that exhibit also had a film component. I've also done some ridiculous things. Well, if that wasn't ridiculous, some ridiculous things. One of which was an exhibit of, this is when Barack Obama was running for president. Well, he had become president by the time the exhibit went on. But it was an exhibit of Obama goods from Japan and Hawaii called Obama no Obama. No is a possessive. Politics, Celebrity, International Ties in 2011, again at the Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii, in which I brought the mayor from Obama, Japan, voted at that time the handsomest mayor in Japan, plus, it was quite a scene, plus his 5-member retinue, plus 16 members of the Obama Girls hula troupe to Hawaii. Anyway, this happened to coincide with APEC, and Obama was in town. Unfortunately, his schedule did not permit coming to the exhibition, but his sister, Maya, attended and offered a few kind words to our endeavors. Meanwhile, we had hula dancers and we had the handsome mayor, and a good time was had by all. That's all I can say. And then the third exhibition, which some of you may have heard about, it's this, and Mary, maybe you'd like to, I'll give this to Mary, since maybe people at the Citadel might like the exhibition.
Somehow I think super cute in the Citadel, we're not going to come together.
You never know. You never know. In which, so it's an exhibit that will be opening at the Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles. This is the first time that I have been contacted and contracted. They're actually paying me money. The rest was all gratis, right? This is Kuleana. Now it's Kuleana to my pocketbook. But anyway, and so so this exhibit opens in October. It runs through April and is intended to travel for 3 to 5 years, and has gained a certain amount of notoriety because the notoriety, I don't know if any of you have paid much attention. I don't expect that you necessarily have, but apparently some people have. And for me, it was very interesting as an anthropologist who studies media as part of what I do, to then be some of the object of media in this. And I just wanted to give you a time frame for, because it was it became part of my study, and it's a continuing study. So while I was in Los Angeles curating this exhibition, this was just 2 weeks ago or so, maybe 10 days ago, on Monday at 5 p.m., I did a phone interview with an LA Times reporter. And we had a great time. She understood Hello Kitty very well. She grew up in LA. She grew up with Hello Kitty. Anyway, so that was Monday at 5 p.m. Tuesday, around the same time, so 24 hours later, she sent me her blog that she had created. And the title of that blog was Hello Kitty is Not a Cat. All right. So that was 24 hours after my interview with her. And so that was Tuesday. By Wednesday, it had gone viral. And I was told, I mean, I was busy. I wasn't even at my computer. It went viral, and I was told that it was #1 trending on the internet in the world. This news item, Hello Kitty is not a cat. And I guess my claim to fame from that, if it can be called fame or infamy, is that I was knocked out of the #1 spot of trending by the marriage of, or the wedding of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. So the media requests for coming in at a phenomenal rate. They were about 5 an hour. And they were contacting me on Wednesday because they wanted, and this is, we shouldn't be naive about this. Everybody wanted a part of this story because it was new, and so everybody wanted a live interview on Thursday. But Thursday I was traveling back from LA to Boston, so I was in the air. So I couldn't do the live interviews. It was BBC, it was CNN, it was, it went on and on. And then by the time that I got here, well, when I arrived in Boston, I looked at my email, and in the 5 or 6 hours in which I had my email off, 89 media requests had come in those 5 hours. And I wasn't able to take them. I did a few. And in fact, WGBH was very kind to lend their studio, as was Harvard, for an LA live interview. But I'll say this, that when I finally said, okay, I'm not in the air, I can do some interviews, it was already late Friday. And the trending had gone down precipitously. So I was no longer in demand, hardly at all. And so as I plummeted in terms of trending, it was interesting how different markets cropped up, including, so the trending had been American and European. But the other markets that came up were Japanese, and after that, South American. So it was interesting to see not only speed, but also geographic distribution. And I just want to